What the? I tell you, the night floaters are real, he said, slamming his fist down on the beer-soaked table. One of the waiters walked over and gave him the stink eye, so he lowered his voice. Or tried to. I saw them, eh? It was back when I was around 14. A bunch of us were camping out in Rap's backyard. Rap, Big Ricky, Wimpy and me, and somebody, Wimpy maybe, Wimpy I guess, dared us to go on a midnight stroll through the woods atop Hogsback Ridge and look for the night floaters. I don't think any of us really wanted to go, but you can't back down when you're 14, eh? And so 30 minutes later, we were on the trail atop the ridge. It wasn't too scary as there was a bright full moon. Of course there was. A werewolf moon. Ooh! So it was like walking through the woods in daytime. Well, from the ridge, you can see St. Mary's Cemetery on the other side of the creek. The distance is about 1,000 yards, I guess, and we could see lights moving around in there, and when we looked more closely, we could see people moving around. Now, we knew there weren't any funerals at midnight, so we hid in the bushes and watched. And that's when it happened. These heads, human heads, just heads, came flying through the air, 100 feet above the creek, coming straight for us. They were the night floaters. We were sure they'd spotted us, but they flew over us towards town. Well, we didn't stick around, but hightailed it back to the tent. Big, tough Ricky was real upset. He was sure they were going to kill somebody. But who could we tell? No one would believe us, just like you don't believe me now. And nobody had a phone? Nobody tried to film the heads? I said. Nope. We were too freaked out. At first, when we saw the lights, Rap tried to video the cemetery, but it came out too dark and blurry to really see anything. Well, in the end, we decided to visit the scene of the crime before the bar cut us off and kicked us out. So, 30 minutes later, we had stopped at my place to pick up some traveling refreshments. We stood atop Hogsback Ridge, looking for the night floaters. What are the night floaters? The night floaters were the boogeymen, or maybe the boogie people, of my youth. They were this supposed cult of malignant ghouls that could detach their heads from the trunks of their bodies, the heads then being able to fly through the night to attack victims and satisfy their taste for human flesh. They were said to hang around graveyards to dig up corpses and eat their rotting bodies. Carrion, eh? Carrion. Yuck! But I was terrified of the night floaters when I was a little kid, and the older kids kept telling me horror stories about them to make sure I stayed terrified. I always kept my bedroom drapes shut tight to keep them from peeping in at me, and I never went out alone after the streetlights came on, after the darkness had taken control. But somewhere around the time I stopped believing in Santa and the Easter Bunny, I realized the night floaters were BS too. But here was Gavin telling me he'd seen them. Adamant he'd seen them. Adamant. It was dark in the woods. It was an overcast night with no full moon to light our way. Plus, we'd both had about 5 or 6 beers and was working on another. Eventually, we stumbled to a spot where we could look across at the cemetery and saw absolutely nothing. The woods were largely silent, although we could hear the sound of the babbling creek below and the hum of the distant traffic on the Queen Elizabeth Highway, which was about a mile away. I broke the quiet when I jeered, "So where are the night floaters, eh?" But the answer I got was totally unexpected, for we both heard a soft, almost cloying voice say, "I see you," which was followed by the most ungodly shriek it was ever our misfortune to hear. The shriek was nearly impossible to describe, high-pitched but guttural, with an insane but human quality. And the volume! Nothing human could have produced such a sound. Nothing human could have made a sound that loud. We looked towards each other, but didn't even have time for a WTF when the screech came again, much closer this time, and without a word, we ditched our beers and started to run. It only took us 4 or 5 minutes to clear the woods, and the scream came again and again, closer each time. Once beyond the trees, we crossed the train tracks and reached the nearest road, only to hear the shriek again directly behind us. And that's when we saw Cody's house, which stood at the edge of the woods. All the lights were on, and the music was blasting, so we knew Cody was home, and that his parents were not. When Cody finally answered the door, he was not pleased to see us. "What do you wankers want?" But before we could answer, the shriek came again, from the grove of trees directly across the road. We jumped inside. Cody slammed and locked the door, shut the music off, and turned out all the lights. And for the next hour, we sat in the dark, listening intently as something moved around outside of the house, and from time to time shook the very foundation with its blood-curdling howls. Don't you wish it was just the night floaters?" Gavin whispered. "Shh! Shh!" Cody and I hissed back. The stalking and the screeching seemed to go on for hours, but eventually it subsided, and what with sitting in silence, in the dark, I fell asleep. It was still dark when I awoke, alone. Gavin and Cody were gone, and then, right next to my ear, a voice very softly said, "I see you." The moral of the story? If you go down to the woods today, don't!